And now, Effective Communication with Phil Zeller, CEO, Dale Carnegie, Southwest Michigan.
They're judging you. Yes, they are. We've talked about it. 3 to 7 seconds. It's how quickly a human being judges another person, whether you're an early adopter, 3 seconds if you're a laggard, a little bit pacing yourself, could be up to 7 seconds, but it's happening. And people are doing this right now all the time. And maybe your mother said you don't judge other people, you shouldn't do that. Well, the reality is that people do it, right? Whether you want to be honest with it or not, everybody judges other people. And here's why. The only thing we truly compare ourselves to as human beings is other people. That's what we compare ourselves to. We don't compare ourselves to our cat or our dog. We love our animals. But we don't compare ourselves to them. We don't compare ourselves to the tree out there today. We don't compare ourselves to our car. We compare ourselves with other people. So these fundamentals can help us out whenever we're trying to be more effective in our communication. Oftentimes I see so many people when they're preparing to give a presentation or preparing to run a meeting or preparing to go in front of the media, they all of a sudden start to contrive all these different things that they think they're supposed to do. Well, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put out a clear message that people can react to in the way you want them to react to it. It's pretty simple when you think about it, but there's a million things that go into it, and people really struggle with it. I know this. You know this. Public speaking is the number one fear in America, and people are not real comfortable with it. Well, it's how do you become more confident in ways to present your ideas? And one of the things that you can do to really build your confidence in getting your thoughts and ideas across is to really have positive feelings about the subject you are presenting to other people. So whatever you're going to cover in the meeting, whatever you're going to cover in a media interview, whatever you're going to cover with the public, or wherever you may be when you're giving a presentation, make sure that you really have a positive feeling about whatever it is you're going to cover, even if it's a difficult thing. I think of guys like Bill Nye the Science Guy. Remember that guy? He loved science so much, he got so excited about sharing it, and all of a sudden you saw yourself, this guy's just having a good time. This is interesting. And all of a sudden you got lulled into watching this stuff, and you're like, maybe at the get-go, if you would have saw the title, we're going to learn, something about this science. And you're thinking, wow, well, that's not really me right now. But all of a sudden this guy comes on, he's enthusiastic, he's so excited about it. You bought into it, and you got engaged into it. And this is the key to thinking. In your life, let's go back to human behavior. Let's tie it to communication, because that's what this show is about, being effective in our communication. And sometimes, we don't connect with everybody, but our goal is to connect with as many people as possible when we're speaking so that our message is heard, understood, and it fulfills the purpose that we set in our intent. I remember a few years ago when my dad passed away, he shared with me years before he passed away, he said, when I pass away, I want a party at my funeral. And I said, Dad, you want a party? And he said, yeah. He goes, I want people to celebrate my life. It's truly what I wish would happen. He goes, if I had the perfect funeral, people would be just sitting around having a beer and telling stories, good stories about the time they had with me. He goes, that would, to me, would be the best funeral in the world. And so I put that into my head, and I listened to that, and that's what my dad wanted. So when my dad did pass away years later, I remembered that, and I shared with my siblings, and I have 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters, and I share with them, this is what Dad really wanted. So if you leave it up to me, okay, let me facilitate this. I will set this up, and we're going to give Dad what he wanted. So it was a beautiful thing about Dad's funeral. We were able to share stories, positive stories about my dad. And yes, it was a very sad day that my dad passed, and it could be sad at the funeral. But my dad wanted everything to be positive. He wanted people to remember the good times they had with him, not the bad times, not the sadness that he was gone, but really how many good times did they have together. So when we laid out that presentation that day at the funeral home, I let people know for the first 2 hours it was going to be very somber and to come there and pay your respects. But after those 2 hours were over, we're going to shift gears. We were going to start sharing stories of my dad's life, cracking a beverage and sharing stories. And I started off, and I had all my siblings. I started with my oldest sister and worked the way down, and I was last because I'm the baby of the bunch. But everybody shared a story, and then everybody in the crowd wanted to share stories. And it was so cool because we heard stories about my dad we had never heard because people were telling positive, fun stories at a funeral. And I can remember my uncle called me up afterwards and said, that's the best funeral I've ever been to in my life. I will hope my funeral is just like that. So remember, any presentation you're giving, even if it's a difficult subject matter like a funeral, have positive feelings about your subject matter. Show that through what you do, and the impact on your guest will be a positive experience.